Joining us now to break down the progress of these legal issues is Cassie Smedile, the Deputy Communications Director for the Republican National Committee. So, Cassie, yesterday we saw Republicans in the state of Arizona hold their hearing regarding the integrity of the election there. Today, we see another hearing taking place, but this time in the state of Michigan. So, when we're looking at these in their totality, is the Republican National Committee also watching these hearings, trying to find evidence and lay out a type of groundwork moving forward?
Yes, absolutely. We've collected thousands of affidavits from hardworking, honest Americans who have attested to irregularities that they witnessed. And so we're going through the process on the ground with our legal teams on the ground, with the state parties, with the local officials to investigate every single one of these allegations. And as you saw in that hearing yesterday, which it's really an atrocity that so many in the mainstream media are just flat out ignoring them, are trying to sweep all of this under the rug. And you heard tapes from Americans who were just called up and said, no, I never requested that absentee ballot. So we know these irregularities are out there. We know there are issues with the system as it played out. We saw that months in advance as Democrats tried to undo election safeguards. And so this is why we are going after these, and this is why we're not letting up. And I would make one more point to all of those who are trying to move on from Election Day, that Al Gore spent 37 days just on Florida. And here we are, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all of these fronts. And I would also note that in 2016, we were just now getting ready to start the recount in Michigan. So on the timeline, the media would have you believe Election Day happens and the next day we're all supposed to move on. But that's not in actuality how this usually works. So we are well within the standard timeline to investigate all of these irregularities and make sure that the integrity of our election process remains intact.
And I'm glad you laid out those timelines, because I think that it's important for people to realize that back in 2016, for example, Democrats were the ones calling for audits, asking to make sure that we could verify the results of the election. So I think that it's important for people to keep that context in mind, because right now we hear so much about the deadlines. For example, the fact that electors will be officially certifying their results on December 14th, I believe is the timeline, and then also the inauguration on January 20th. So there are some deadlines that a lot of people are looking at. But when it comes to additional action from the RNC, we know that the Trump campaign, for example, is talking about upcoming lawsuits. We know that Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, other Republican actors are also talking about additional lawsuits. Is there anything else that people should be looking at from the RNC in the coming days?
Well, just know that we are on the ground. We've been there since before Election Day, never left, no plans to leave until we feel satisfied with the investigations into these irregularities, that we feel satisfied with the curating of the ballots, with the auditing of the ballots, again, something that we're working on in Georgia, that this is what we do. There is a process in place for this. There's a whole account for fundraising in place for this, and we are continuing to be grateful for the contributions to that account from so many thousands of Americans who also want to see that the integrity of our elections stands. And so that's why we're continuing to work, of course, with the president's campaign, with local officials in each of these states, because this is about this election. But even as the president said, this is about the future of all elections integrity in our country, including this one. And so that's why we're working on this year, 2020, and we're also making sure that people can be confident in our elections process going forward.
And the election that a lot of people are looking to is those upcoming Georgia Senate runoff races. That's something where Senate control will literally be on the line in those races. I can't think of a time where there was a bigger race when it comes to the Senate. I mean, this is literally going to dictate whether or not Republicans have any checks and balances in Congress, whether or not there's a potential check on a potential Biden administration, whether President Trump, if he were to pull off his legal challenges, will be able to continue pushing through judges, things of that nature. So there's a lot on the line when it comes to the state of Georgia. Is what's happening right now making sure, as you were saying, not only about future elections in 2021 and beyond, but even Georgia, making sure that election is free and fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we heard Chuck Schumer said, first we take Georgia, then we take the country. So they are making no secret of that. They see the Senate, and if they are able to get the majority in the Senate, as their next best avenue for pushing through their radical leftist agenda. And we did a really good job of holding the line in the House, severely shrinking their majority, actually empowering Republicans and conservatives in the House. We've got to do the same in the Senate. And we just saw today, there's news out that an organization affiliated with Stacey Abrams and Ralph Warnock is actively trying to get, I believe it's Georgia college students who are not residents of Georgia, to register as voters, claim that Georgia residency, which is a felony in the state, And we're going to go after them. We're on to them. We know that these are things that they're actively trying to do, which again ties back to our earlier conversation. But we know that Democrats are trying to undo election safeguards so that they can undermine the voting process to have their will and have their way, which is why it's so important. Not only are we staying on top of that, but that we are executing our full ground game strategy, which we are in the state. We're barnstorming the state with every resource that we have, with thousands of volunteers to knock doors, make sure people are registered to vote, make sure people know where to vote, to ensure that we have the voter turnout that we need to ensure victory on Election Day and hold the line in the Senate.
And if that action by Democrats that you just laid out isn't an indicator of how big those races are, then I don't know what to tell you at this point. You can look into the Republican side of the aisle as well. I mean, we've already seen people who really don't have much to do with Georgia, but coming out and making their case to the people of Georgia. Vice President Mike Pence, Senators Marco Rubio, Tim Scott as well. I mean, they're all coming to Georgia right now because they know how important those races are. So if other people don't at this point, I don't know what to tell them. But Cassie Smedile, I appreciate you coming on the program tonight, breaking down the results of the 2020 election, but also what comes next regarding Georgia. Thank you.